So let's go ahead and get started today with the workshop. I'm Art. I'll be your host today. I'm with No Code Devs. I've been building with low code, no code, and even some code tools now for the better part of a decade. I'm non-technical by nature, so I really do like the no code tools. It allows me to build faster. And of course, the tooling today is getting a lot better. But I'm a big fan of marketing, automation, and just building products. Today, we're going to be talking about how to create your own AI assistant trained on your own data. And we're going to use Buildship and Wix Studio. You'll see, though, that you can use sort of whatever front-end tool that you would like as we go through this. So let's go ahead and jump to the next slide here. So I won't be in slides for very long. Fear not, we're going to be building most of this time. There's just a couple of things I want to cover in these slides. So some of you might be asking, so we've all seen chatbots, but what are some of the use cases for a chatbot, especially one that's trained on your own data? And how can you build it with no code? That's what we're going to do today. There's really a ton of use cases. I just put some of the most popular ones here. So if you have a list of products for your e-commerce site, it'd be really useful to have a chatbot. So instead of like searching and filtering and trying to manually find products, a customer could potentially just come to your site, say, hey, I'm looking for a blue skateboard or whatever it may be. And then that chatbot would direct them to that link on your website instantly. So it saves a lot of time for your customers. Other use cases like internal training. So you could load up all your knowledge docs to a chatbot and then have the customers or your employees interact with that chatbot. SaaS, of course, help docs, employee onboarding, lead gen, survey collection. Of course, if you want to have personalized content recommendations, which we already talked about with e-commerce, or any sort of other site, like a CMS, which is the example that we're going to show today, you could certainly do that. If you want to allow your customers to ask FAQs, like through an interactive bot, rather than just read them on your site, that could be a really good use case. But honestly, the use cases are pretty limitless here. These are just some of the most common things that we see people building with chatbots. Okay, moving on. So what will you need today to do what I'm doing? We're going to use a few different tools. We're going to use Buildship. I'll give an overview of Buildship here in a minute, but if you haven't used before, it's a super powerful backend builder. You can build all kinds of different things with Buildship, and I'll show you some of the use cases and templates that they have. We're going to use an OpenAI assistant and an OpenAI key for this, which you can easily create. I'm going to show you how to do that. We're going to be using Google Sheets to interact with Buildship, but you could use all kinds of different data sources, including traditional databases or something simple like Google Sheets. And then we're going to be using Wix Studio for the front end, and I'm going to show you how to put the chatbot that we build on the front end of a website. But you could use any front end builder that you would like, as long as it accepts a custom code snippet, because that's how we're going to embed it in our site. So those are the tools that we need. Super simple. And we're going to start with Buildship. I'm going to hop right into Buildship here and just give you a quick overview of Buildship. So for those of you who are not familiar with Buildship, it's a relatively new tool. It's a visual backend builder powered by AI, and it's low code. You can build flows to your desire, I would say, and they have all kinds of apps that connect with Buildship, so you can integrate it with most of the popular tools out there. And they even have a ton of different templates that are pre-built for you that might just solve your use case entirely, or you could take it and then deconstruct it, add nodes, things like that. But we're going to be using Buildship today to build our backend, if you will, for this chatbot. And we're going to go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to switch over to this tab. So now I'm just logged into Buildship, and the page that I'm on here is their templates page. We're looking at all their templates, but if you see me pan through here, they have all kinds of different things. So they have AI templates, chat with your database, chat with Google Sheets, which we're going to be using today, website Q&A, AI email assistant, chat with Airtable, chat with Supabase. So you're getting the idea. There's a ton of different integrations and templates that they have pre-built for you that you can just plug and play. But it's not just limited to AI. They also have like internal tools, Google Forms and Discord notifications, auto-index websites to Google, monetize GPT, Stripe payment listener, Tally form submissions. There's a ton that you can do. There's payment tools with Stripe. There's web scraping tools, and you can mix and mash all of these together. Like I said, you can build these sort of like endless flows within Buildship. So there's a lot of really cool people building some very interesting things with Buildship. If you go to YouTube, you can check it out and see all the different types of use cases that people are building with Buildship. So highly recommend the tool. It's super, super cool. and there's a lot that you can do. So let's go ahead and get started. So what we're going to be building today, again, just as a recap, is a chatbot that is trained on our Google Sheet data to intelligently answer questions about the data on a Google Sheet. And I'll show you how that all works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and navigate over here to this AI template section. And I'm going to choose this template here that says chat with Google Sheets because it's exactly what we need for this use case. I'm going to go ahead and click this, and it's actually going to create this flow based off this template for me. And we have some things happening here. It starts with a REST API call, and the path here is /talk to sheets, and it's a post request. I'm getting an error message here, it looks like, that talk to sheets is already in use in another workflow. Use a different path. Okay, that's because I set this up earlier to make sure it works, and I'm using the same exact path here. You can't have the same path on two different flows on the same account. So we can solve that easily just by putting a 2 after this, and now that error has gone away. But before we go any further, I'm just going to walk you through a high overview of what's happening here. So we're starting with the REST API call, the post method, talk to sheets. Then we've got the OpenAI assistant node here, where we just need a couple of things. We need the API key, the assistant ID, and then we need the instructions that we're going to give, which is just like our prompt. Then moving down the flow here, we have our Google Sheets node. We're going to connect our spreadsheet URL and our spreadsheet name, and we can one-click authenticate here to our Google Sheets. I'll show you how that all works. And then at the very end here, it's just going to return the data. So this is just like the return endpoint. We don't really need the return, but if you were building this in a web application, you could use this endpoint to build out your web application. You could test it in Postman, that kind of thing. We're not going to do too much with that today, but this is part of the pre-built flow. So we're just going to keep it there. It doesn't hurt anything at all. Okay, so this is just like the big picture overview. Now we're going to go ahead and just tab over to our Google Sheet here just to show you what we're working with today. So No Code Devs, the website, part of the website is this tools database. We have hundreds of tools in our tool database. And what I thought might be interesting here is to build a chatbot that is trained on our tools so that rather than going to our website and just like searching or filtering for a tool, there could be a chatbot there. Somebody could ask a question like, I want to build an e-commerce website. What tools do you recommend? I want to build an automation. What tools do you recommend? And then the chatbot will quickly give them the answer that they're looking for so they don't have to shift through hundreds of different tools. So this is what I did. I just exported it from our CMS on Wix Studio. And I just took out, we have tons of data, but I just took out 3 columns. So I have the tool name in column A. I have a summary of the tool, which is just a short summary in column B. And I actually have the URL of the tool in column C. As you can see here, I've got about 700 different tools here in this Google Sheet. So this is already set up. I obviously did this before this webinar, so you didn't have to sit through me creating this. But your Google Sheet could be any data that you have. It could be data that you built yourself. It could be data that you scraped. It could be data that you bought. Whatever the use case might be, it could be your own data. You can just put it into a Google Sheet, just have it structured in columns, and you should be good to go. So just to give you some context of the data that we're using here to build this chatbot. So coming back here, let's just go through this flow. So the first step here is this OpenAI assistant, and we need 2 things. We need an OpenAI API key, and we need the assistant ID, as I mentioned earlier. So let's head over to OpenAI assistants. And I already created an assistant, but for the sake of doing this completely from scratch, I'm going to go ahead and create a new one. Go ahead and hit create. And I'll call this, it's right here. So I'll call this Buildship 2. And then we need some basic instructions. Now, I pasted this in from my other assistant. These are super simple instructions. I'd recommend taking some time to build out good instructions, but what I have here is you're just a helpful assistant whose job it is to recommend best no-code tools based on users' goals. An example would be, I want to create an e-commerce website for my skateboarding company. Okay, so that's it. You can change some of the temperature settings and the fine tuning if you would want, but we're just going to leave everything as is. We're not going to get too overly complicated with this. So what we need here is this assistant ID. I'm just going to copy this and paste it in here. where it says assistant ID. Okay, so that's part one. Part two is we need our OpenAI API key. So I can head over to my API keys. I can create a new secret key. I'll call this Buildship 2, and I'll create my key. I'll copy it. I'll head back over to Buildship, and I will paste this API key in here. Okay, let me pause for a second, take a look at the chat, everything. Everyone's able to see everything okay. Okay, looks like we're good to go. All right, so now I have my API key and my assistant ID in. Third step here is the instructions. Now, if you remember, we just copied this template from Buildship. So there are some just like generic instructions in here, like you're a Azure home specialist, you have detailed knowledge, blah, blah, blah. We actually don't need this because this is not for our use case. What we want to do is I'm going to head over to this one that I already built, and I'm going to take my instructions that I put in here, which are super simple. Again, I'm going to copy them, come back here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste these in here. So here are my instructions. Super simple. I would recommend spending some more time building out your prompt, better prompts, better results, but this seems to have worked well for me. You are a no-code assistant whose job it is to recommend the best tools. Okay. Super simple, right? Guidelines. This is really important. When you start the conversation, you must use get sheets to access the list of no-code tools. And what are we referring to here? So when we say get sheets, we're actually referring to this node here, which is the get sheets node from Google Spreadsheets. If you don't pass in that instruction with the guideline of get sheets, what's going to happen is it's just going to use OpenAI generally to answer the questions, and it's not going to actually use your data set that we are trying to get custom answers for. So you want to make sure that you absolutely use get sheets to access the list of no-code tools or whatever your use case is. Okay. So the final step here is in the get sheets, we want to authenticate into our Google Drive, essentially our Google Sheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click this little fingerprint icon. Let me zoom in here just a little bit if that helps anyone. And if you click the fingerprint, now I've signed in already with Google. If you have never signed in to Google with Buildship, it's just going to be a one-click auth sign in, and then you will be authenticated. So I'm going to go ahead and I see it says it looks pixelated. Okay, I'll just zoom out one. I'm going to choose Art at No Code Devs, and now I get this blue icon here that shows that the fingerprint is authenticated. Now, I need two things. I need this sheet URL and the sheet name. So if I head back over to this Google Sheet and I hit share, what we want to do is we want to make sure that anyone with the link is an editor, and I can just copy this link now. If I head back over to Buildship, I can just paste this URL right in the share URL, and then we need the sheet name. So if we head back over to Google Sheets, we'll see that the sheet name is sheet 1 with no spaces. So let's come back here, and we have sheet 1, but there's a space. If you don't have this exactly right, it will not work. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that space. And now it just says sheet 1. You can also use AI to write some of these instructions and prompts. We didn't need them here, but just know that's something you can do. Now, the final step is just to return the value. Again, if we were working with the API, this would be super important. I'll show you what that looks like. But for now, we don't need to worry about that. I'm going to just close out these instructions. So everything looks good here. We have our REST API call with the endpoint talk to sheets 2. We have our API key. We have our assistant ID. We have our instructions, which are super simple. And we've authenticated in our Google Sheet that we want the OpenAI to interact with. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click this blue ship button here. And this should just take a second, but essentially what this is doing is it's publishing our backend. And there's some pretty interesting options here once this ships. So you get an endpoint URL right here. So you could just go take this out the Postman or your app, whatever you're building, and you could use this endpoint URL with your web app, no problem. We're not going to test it in Postman, but it does work. And like I said, if you're building a front-end app, you can just use this endpoint to build your app. You can also export the API. You have a couple of different options here. You can export it here as JSON or YAML. We're not going to do that, but I just want to show that is an option. But the third option here, which is actually a relatively new feature with Buildship, is Chat Widget. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to go ahead and click Chat Widget, and it's going to open up this new window. This is pretty cool. So we have some customization options here. We have the widget title, the greeting message, the button name, and then there's some advanced options like the response is a stream, close on outside click, open on load, disable error alert, et cetera, et cetera. We won't play with the advanced options, but as we can see here, our chatbot down here is demoing with this little beep button. If we go ahead and click this, it opens up a chatbot, and we should be able to right now ask it a question about our data. So let's go ahead and give this a try. What are some good e-commerce tools? This may take a second on the first time to come back with something. I noticed that the first question usually takes a second, but after that, it's typically pretty fast. Okay, so check this out. We already got back an answer. Here's some excellent e-commerce tools that can help you expand your business. Again, this is from our database. This is not OpenAI giving us this answer. It's trained on our Google Sheet that quickly. So we got a few ones. We got Shopify, we got WooCommerce, we got Pictory, Pop-Up Smart, Shopify Gen Pages, so on and so on. Okay, that's cool. So what about some automation tools? This should come back faster. All right, so just like that, here are some automation tools that can help you streamline your workflows and increase productivity. So we got Zapier, we got Pipedream, we got Make, we got N8N, Automate.io, and so on and so forth. So this is working really well. So let's take a look at a couple of things here. We can actually customize this. We can call the widget title, no code devs, bot. Greeting message, let's say, hello, what can I help? Hello, what can I help you with today? Okay. The name, let's just call it Let's Chat. You can see it's actually updating the code snippet in real time. And all right, it looks like our code has updated. The button now says Let's Chat. If we expand it, it says no code devs bot, and everything's still working. So we'll say thank you. I always thank AI. You never know when they are coming for you. So I always try to be polite. All right. So I said, thank you. You're welcome. If you have any other questions, need assistance with no-code tools, feel free to ask. So it's very personalized already without us having to do anything. It understands the context of the conversation. And of course, it's recommending data that we trained on. If we had a list of 50 states with descriptions of parks in all these 50 states, the chatbot would be answering questions about the states versus no-code tool. So the possibilities are definitely endless. Our chatbot is working here. So we have our chatbot. I do want to mention before we go on here that you can add nodes, and I mentioned this once, but you can add additional steps to your nodes, as many as you would like. If you didn't want to use OpenAI, instead you want to use Claude, or you wanted to get data from Google Sheets and Airtable and Superbase, you could certainly do that. You would just string it all together here with these different nodes. If you want to add a node, just want to show you here all the different things that they have. So they have Airtable integrations. Just going to go through some of these. Azure, AWS, S3 storage. Buildship has its own data storage, so you can use Buildship as a data center. They have Discord, 11 Labs, Firebase, Flutterflow, Gemini, Gmail, Google Calendar, JSON, Hugging Face, HubSpot, Medium, MailChimp. The list goes on and on. So I just want to show you that there is a ton of different integrations that you can plug in to Buildship, Webflow, WhatsApp, WordPress. So they pretty much have you covered no matter what apps you want to use. So don't feel like you're limited to just using Google Sheets. It's just what I used in this example. So, okay, so we have this green check mark here that we shipped our app, and we have our chat widget built. I actually didn't apply and save the changes. So let me just make this no code devs. Hello, how can I help? Okay, and let's chat. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and copy the script now. And now what we want to do is we want to get this on our website, because right now it's not really helping anyone, right? It's just on Buildship, but we need it to be on our website. And this is a super easy part of this step. Here we go. I'm going to go over to Wix Studio, which is just what I'm using in this case. Again, you can use the front end builder of your choice. I do recommend Wix Studio, but what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create a new site. We're going to use a Studio blank canvas for this. And it's going to spin up a completely blank website for us here. Just take a second. One thing I want to mention why this is working is if we come back to this, you can style this chatbot widget however you would like. So you're not limited to the style that they give you here. You can add custom attributes to your button, to your chatbot. You can make it look however you want. We're going to use a very basic implementation of this, but just know that you can add attributes, and they do have I'm not seeing it here, but they do have documentation on how to style. Oh, weird. Here it is. Add any customization options as needed. So they do have documentation on how you can style and configure this bot beyond the basic configuration options that they give you. So just want to put that out there in case you think, oh, this doesn't look that great. You could definitely customize it however you would like. Okay, so my site has spun up. This is just a blank site, as you would expect, a header, like a body section, and a footer. What we want to go ahead and do is in this section here, what we're going to do is we're just going to hit add element. We're going to do an iframe, and then we're going to hit this button, enter code. Now we're going to take our code that we got here from Buildship. We just copied this snip, and we're going to paste it in this box. Again, the experience might be different on different front-end builders, but generally it's pretty straightforward. We pasted this in. Let's get this out of here. We'll expand this to full width. And as you can see, there's just this like unstyled button right now that says, let's chat. Doesn't look great, but let's see if it works. That's what really matters. The styling is easy. I'm going to go ahead and preview my site. And let's go ahead and click the let's chat button. Okay, so it looks like it's actually getting cut off here. So let me exit out of this. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to expand this section down. Again, to keep it super simple. I'll preview again. Okay, now it should have more room to expand. I'm going to go ahead and hit let's chat. And here we go. We can see no code devs powered by Buildship. I believe if you upgrade your plan, you can remove their branding. I'm just on their free sort of plan. So you can do a lot of this stuff on their free plan, by the way, with Buildship and Wix Studio here. I'm just on a free plan. But you can remove their branding if you want it to be fully branded and white labeled. So how can I help you? Let's make sure this works in a live environment, not just on Buildship's website. I am looking for some tools to automate my workflows. Okay, let's see if we get a response in the live environment. Hopefully it just takes a second here. I might have to publish the site. Nope, I don't even have to publish the site. Okay, so here we go. Here's some no-code tools you can use to automate your workflows: Zapier, Make, Pipefy, Automate.io, Work, Parabola, and Flowdash. And we actually got some different answers this time back in the chatbot, which is super interesting. And it also gave us like a little snip here at the bottom about how this might help. Now, you could eliminate these types of problems with inconsistent responses by tweaking your prompts and making them much more robust. My prompts were super basic and not nearly complete enough, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how this all works and how you can easily set this up with your own data and have it live on your website within about 20 minutes. Coming back here to Buildship, I lost my tabs here. You can also, this is what I want to show you. So if you're in the chatbot, you can also just share a public link, which will be on a Buildship domain, but you could do that as well. So if you want to just use it internally, and it doesn't matter if it's live on the web, you could share a public link of your chatbot and just use it internally and never have to worry about publishing it through the widget or through like an API or something like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to walk you through how to set this all up as quickly as I could. Hopefully it was helpful for you, but let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen and see if there are any questions here. Hey, Taylor.
Hi, everyone.
All right. So what questions do we have?
So to start, Radine asked, which template should I choose to build an AI assistant based on the information from the website of my university? I want to train it by every single data like faculties and contact details.
Yeah, so that's a great question. You would need, so there's a couple options. Buildship has a web scraper, so you could scrape the data in your flow and then access that scraped data at a later node in the widget. Some websites are able to be scraped easier than others, so that might be somewhat unreliable. The other option would be to download extracted data and then host it yourself, whether it's like in a Supabase database or an Airtable or Google Sheets. And then once you have that sort of static data, you could train a chatbot on it. You could also download it as a PDF and do it that way. There's a lot of different options, but I would say you could try the scraping tool, see if it works for that website. If not, you want to download the data and put it in your own database or put it in Buildship's database and then train a chatbot on that. So hopefully that helps.
Awesome. And then when you were looking at Buildship's workflow, Sada asked, does OpenAI get access to your data?
That's a good question. I would say that I don't have the perfect answer for that, but I would assume that they do. It's reading that data, so I would err on the side of caution if you're worried about OpenAI seeing your data. That is something you should look into. I don't know the answer to that for sure, but I would assume that they could see it to generate the answers.
Great. And then Hala Sophie asked if there's any way to make the waiting time slower in reference to the chatbot widget. And then they also said knowing that you have a small database that you're working with.
Is it the waiting time slower or faster?
I'm going to assume faster.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's generally pretty fast. I like I said, I've noticed in just my testing that the first response usually takes a little bit longer. I haven't tried this with an extraordinary large data set, like 10, 20,000, rows or something like that. At this point, like I said, this is only 500 rows. So I don't know if it would slow down if you have a bigger data set. I think you would just have to test it. I don't have the answer for that, unfortunately. But if you sign up for Buildship, you get in their Discord, their support is super fast and super responsive, and they have a great community of builders. I know people have built chatbots and apps and backends on large data sets, so I would expect that it works just as efficiently as it did there for me. But you would have to reach out to their support to confirm that. And we're also, how you structure the data is certainly important. If you optimize your data, your backend, your database better than I did, you perhaps could get better responses, quicker responses as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So that helps.
And then we have another question from LJ. Do you think I would be able to use this for a clothing store? Say, for example, I want to dress for a party, and then it could pull up links to the website page for the best matches.
Absolutely. That's exactly what this is designed for. You noticed in my spreadsheet that I just had like the tool URL, but whatever you're using as your e-commerce solution, when you download your data or you train your data by scraping the website, you would just want to use your store links rather than the third-party tool links. Obviously, you'll have the store with the URL for each product. So you just want to make sure that URL is in your data set. And then whenever, somebody asks for a question, it may click the link, it'll just point them to that, URL on your store. And I believe through the chatbot, you can actually pull in images too. So if you have like e-commerce site with product images, you can actually pull in those product images into the chatbot, which might be really useful for an e-commerce case.
Awesome. And then we have another one from Lucy. Is it possible to use it as an assistant to a doctor's website?
That's a good question. The thing that's popping into my head is HIPAA. I don't know off the top of my head if Buildship is HIPAA compliant. So you would want to verify that independently because, of course, there's depending on your country, of course, as well. But for the US, compliance is a big thing. So you want to make sure that you're compliant with any privacy laws in your locale. But other than that, yeah, absolutely. You could imagine any use case and load a chatbot for that.
Okay, and then a recommendation that Boris is asking for, how to create test cases to test the workflow developed in Buildship. Is there any built-in feature in Buildship for this?
That's a good question. I don't know what I've been doing. There's free data sets in abundance on the internet. So one thing that you could do is you could just grab any data set, or you can even use AI to generate some sort of sample data set for you and essentially build the whole flow with this sort of sample data set and then either test it locally, not locally, but in Buildship with the chatbot, or you can, like I said, use the endpoint in Postman. Obviously, lots of people are using Postman to test APIs. So that way you can test it to make sure it works, everything's working to your expectations, then you could just plug in your real data and ship it, and you should be good to go. So that's what I would recommend. I don't know if Buildship has any specific tools to help you test the flow without any data, or if they could generate dummy data. I'm not entirely sure, but that would be my recommendation.
Awesome. And then Suda asked, can you share some tips on how to best organize your data? For example, you showed a summary column. Does adding more fields hurt or improve the process?
Yeah, so the more organized, the better is the rule of thumb. Any way that you can break out the data better so that it can be more easily read by a machine is highly recommended. I do believe that Buildship has some sample sheets and databases that give you like the preferred structure. I didn't use that for this example because it worked for my use case. But as you were alluding to, if you had a bigger data set or more complex data set, you really want to make sure you're using the best practices to set up a data so that the machine can read it, understand it, and present answers back to the user as quickly as possible. There's a ton of resources out there for how to do this, not just with Buildship, but with any data set and working with AI. So I'd encourage you to look at those, but hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, and then we have another question from Lorenz. How would one automate the database, meaning that if the database changes every hour with new information or information being deleted?
Yeah, so it's every time you interact with the chatbot, it's accessing that database in real time. So if something gets deleted or added there, then you're covered because the workflow is going to run through each time. So it's going to check the Google Sheet for the latest data and give the data back to the user based on the current data. So if your database is constantly updating and evolving and deleting, then that's not a problem. That your users will get only what's the current information is. The exception would be like if you upload some static data set to Buildship and use them as a data provider, and then you don't ever update it, and you have a data updating somewhere else, then obviously you wouldn't have access to that data. But if you're using something that's like real time, like a Google Sheet or Airtable or Supabase, then you'd be absolutely good to go because it runs through that workflow every time that the chatbot initiates.
Awesome. And then glad that helped Lorenz. Jose, I think this is a question, maybe asking if this is possible. He would like to build an assistant for an insurance agent that takes leads from a database and then sends SMS messages.
Yep. You can do that with Buildship. It wouldn't be this workflow that I shared today. Essentially, you would have your database. You'd have your database of insurance agents or customers. And then whenever somebody fills out the lead gen form, you could send a message through WhatsApp or SMS to that customer through Buildship. So it wouldn't be like the chatbot that we created today, but that use case is absolutely possible within Buildship. You would just set it up with a different workflow, if you will. And if you get stuck, by the way, building that, because it's going to be a different process in this, again, reach out to in Discord or the community of builders, and somebody would be happy to help you for sure.
Great. And then Salva asked, what about hallucinations? If I use the bot, let's say to study some laws I have in my DDBB, is it accurate?
Yeah, you always have to look out for that kind of stuff. I would independently test which LLM will be best for your use case and make sure that you're happy with the responses. But unfortunately, these chatbots are going to be powered by an LLM of your choosing. By the way, I used OpenAI, but you can use whatever provider you want for an LLM. So the hallucinations are always possible. But if we're building chatbots here that are using LLMs, you're always going to have that. So you want to make sure that you test and make sure that all variations of questions are getting answered to your liking before you put it like live on a website where customers use it. But I think that's a risk no matter how you slice and dice this, what tools you're using, you have that potential risk if you're using an LLM to generate responses.
Yeah, definitely. And PKT asked, should we optimize the backend more to publish a chatbot in a web app?
I think all the things I said earlier with larger data sets and organizing data as best as possible applies here. But no, this would work just as well by using the API endpoint and building an app on top of this. it wouldn't change the experience at all. So I don't think you have to do any additional optimization just because you're using an endpoint versus the chatbot widget. It'll work in the exact same way.
And I think that's it for questions. If anybody has any further ones, Kat, thanks for the feedback on our hosting. Good news, we are going to be switching soon. But thank you for your feedback.
Yeah, exactly. We will be using a different platform next year. So thank you for bearing with us if there were any technical problems today or on any of other events, but we'll be switching. Thank you for the feedback. Yeah, sure. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. One other thing, just for anybody who's still on, I don't have the slide up. I should pull it up, but I'm not going to try to share my screen again. We do have a workshop boot camp starting on November 1st. It's all about e-commerce and how to build, optimize, and sell on the internet. It's free. You can register on our website. You can find the link in the nav bar. I believe Taylor can share it here as well. But if you want to level up and learn more skills and connect with a great community, I encourage you to join this free workshop. We'll be teaching you all kinds of things in Wix Studio, teaching all about e-commerce. So definitely check that out.
I just dropped that in chat for anybody who's interested.
Yeah. And that'll start November 1st. We have one that's going right now. You cannot join that one, but you'll be able to join in November 1st one if you're interested. So stay tuned for that. Also, future sessions that we'll have. We appreciate your feedback. Hopefully this was helpful. We'll do more like this. And thank you so much for being here.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.